Good evening. Tonight I'm going to teach you all about lighting. I know lighting is a difficult task for some people and it throws a lot of people off, especially flash photography. But tonight I'm going to try, and in fact, I'm going to dispel many of those fears that you have tonight and hopefully put you on the right track for becoming a better photographer and gaining more confidence. Hi, I'm Lee Love, and tonight this is Photo Mentor TV. We do this every Tuesday night here at 8 p.m. and Eastern Time. Glad you could join us. And if we always have a little bit of, I always have a little bit of fun. Hopefully you guys do as well. Tonight I'm going to be talking about lighting, my favorite topic, and probably the topic that most people hate, or not hate, but they just, it really is difficult for them. For some reason anyway. So I'll walk you through some things. I think it'll make it a lot easier for you, simpler to understand, and some basic fundamentals that I think will be a very, very big help to you. Again, if this is your first time here, we appreciate you joining us. I really do appreciate everyone that's here and comes on, watches either live or on YouTube via later on in the evening. We'd appreciate if you would subscribe. It'd be a big help to us. So if you find any of this information useful, just go to youtube.com/photomentortv and hit the subscribe button. I know everybody asks you about that, but it means a lot. Okay, let's see. So tonight, like I said, we're going to get into some lighting stuff. I got a lot of stuff planned for you. Going to cram a whole bunch in, hopefully, in the 1 hour that we have this evening. And let's see here. Again, just a quick reminder for those of you that are new here that the first Tuesday of the month, we always have photo reviews, and if you're interested in submitting your work, we'd love to have you join us. Again, just go to review.photomentor.tv and upload your photo. This is not about likes. It's not about any of that kind of stuff. It's really an anonymous review, so we don't use your name. So I encourage anybody to submit any kind of work. It doesn't matter if it's an iPhone or you're just getting started, it doesn't matter. And the work is reviewed basically using the 7 elements of design and art. So therefore, it's all looked at as the same way. Give you real world feedback on things you can use to improve your photography, not just a bunch of things that I like or don't like, because that really doesn't matter. So, okay. So let's go ahead, and I think that's about it. I think I know there's probably something else I was supposed to tell you, but I forgot. A little rattled tonight. Got too much going on. I try and up the show every week, make it better and better, add production value, and it seems like I'm always making things more complicated for myself. I don't know why I do that. Anyway, okay. So let's look at a few things tonight. We're gonna talk about lighting and what I call learning to see the light. And if you recognize the photo, this is a frame from The Blues Brother, one of my favorite movies. It's a classic. What can you say? And he's so anyway, you guys that'll seen the movie, I recognize it. But I'm going to talk a little bit about how light works, why size matters, and yes, the innuendo is on purpose. The soft light and hard light. Talk a little bit about how to photograph more than one person. And I can answer any questions you guys have. Just leave them in the chat, and Sue Ann will make sure that we see them or they get to me, and I can answer any of those questions that you have here. In fact, let me bring this up just so that I can see the questions as well. There we go. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Let's go to the first thing we're going to talk about tonight, before we get into too detail, is one of my favorite quotes by George Eastman, and the quote says, "Light makes photography. Embrace it, admire it, love it, but above all, know it, and know it will, and if you know it for all it's worth, you will know the key to photography. And I can't agree more. It just really made a huge difference in my own photography. And one of the things that I promise you, I can't make too many promises or guarantees, right? But I can make this one. And I feel very confident in doing so. And that is, if you learn lighting, I can promise you it will change your photography forever. And I think I can also promise you that it will improve your confidence. So you will gain more confidence by learning lighting. And the reason for that is you will know you can walk into almost any situation and you can make an image. It may not be perfect. You may have limitations, that kind of thing, but you know you're not limited by what is available there, that you can bring your own lighting and you can make an image the best you can given the circumstances. So at least for me, that's one thing I've learned, and it's just been phenomenal. So I encourage you guys to study this, learn it, and there's just so much I could tell you about lighting and how to learn lighting without being a master, without, just by watching movies and looking at other people's work. Okay, so the other thing I want to show you, first of all, is this is something that is important to understand about lighting. So the first thing is there's something called specular highlights. And what specular highlights is that little bright reflection that shows up on your image. Now, a lot of people want to get around that. I had to figure out how to get rid of it. But in some ways, you really want to be able to use it. So, for example, if you're photographing jewelry or glass or metal, that specular highlight, that little speck of light in there, is what gives an object its shape. So if you look at these two objects here, they're the same size. Obviously, one is black and one is white, but the only thing that gives the white one its shape is shadow. The only thing that gives the black one its shape is the specular highlight. So you want to be able to be aware of that and learn how to control that. Like I said, if you're photographing jewelry, here's a tip. I know next time you go into your jewelry store and you're looking at a bauble there and something nice you want to add, look at the lighting. You will find it's very interesting. It's usually straight from above. It's very small, and it's not typically LED lighting. It's halogen lighting. And the fixtures are very small, and that puts a sparkle that makes that jewelry look really, really good. If they had big flat lighting, let's look at the next image. So here's the exact same image, but with a 59-inch reflector. Okay, they're both 12 feet away, okay? But this one is with a 59-inch reflector. Look at the difference in the object. Now, obviously, this first one I think was underexposed. I probably should have turned up the lighting when I did this one. But look at kind of how flat and boring it is. It's now, there's a little more, you certainly have a little smoother shadow, the fall off on the shadow on the right-hand side of the white one. But look at how dull that specular highlight is on the black one. So if you're photographing jewelry, you would not want to use a big flat white surface. So a lot of times people will do things with, like a soft box. You can buy these boxes, have lights all around them for doing eBay photography and stuff like that. Well, that's fine, except if you're photographing jewelry or something, it's going to be very flat looking because the light has come from all directions. It makes it simpler because you don't have to worry about lighting or anything. You can just throw an object in there and it's just going to be lit from every direction. But it's not going to be as appealing if the object needs that specular highlight. So specular highlight are very important to an object and what gives it its shape. So, and the other thing would be, even if you're out, I tell people if you're outside and you just pop up your flash, if you just have an inside on-camera flash, just pop that flash up a little bit. And they're like, well, why would I do that? I don't need that outdoors. Because what you're going to find is that one little light, being very small, is going to put just a specular highlight, or what's called a catch light, in the person's eyes, and it's going to make their eyes even more look alive. So specular highlights are a very, very important part of photography and lighting, and you want to be able to control them and look at them and monitor them. Also, it gives you an idea of the direction of the light when you're trying to analyze lighting. So, okay, hopefully that helps a little bit. Okay, so here's our first example. So this first example is taken with a light it's a speed light, just a regular speed light, no modifier, just what we kind of refer to in a way as a bare bulb light. It's taken at 3 feet away, or 0.9 millimeters, and meters, I guess. I did this, by the way, for Allie and for Tamara. Tamara's in Canada, and Allie's in Australia, and I think they use probably metric system. So, as a way to honor you guys, I decided to put metric in here. It doesn't mean I had to look it up to know what it was, though, because I have no idea. So I'm just a stupid empirical kind of measurement kind of guy. So 3 feet is how far away the light is. Okay, it's a 70 millimeter zoom lens is what it's set to, and the speed light is set to about 1/16 power. Now, speed lights have a zoom range on them. You can zoom the light in or out, make it wider, or so if you have it in a softbox or something, you can make it wider. But so this one's zoomed all the way in, so it gives it basically more power is going to be going in one direction. Now, it's shot at 1/125th of a second, but as I mentioned to you guys, I've told, if you watch the session that I did on outdoor lighting, you will quickly learn, as I mentioned there, that shutter speed has no bearing whatsoever on the speed light, only on the ambient light. So I put that in there, but it really is not, it's irrelevant. Okay, so now, obviously, 3 feet away, you can look and see there's a very dramatic shadow. Now, here's something I should mention, and this is a common mistake. I made it as well when I got started in using flash photography. You would think the logical assumption is, oh, if I want it to fill more of the background, and I want the background to be wider, and I want more light on her other side of her face, then I would move the light closer. But that's not what happens. It's the opposite of what you want to do. You actually want to move the light away. You're like, what? That doesn't make sense. I know, it doesn't make sense. Trust me. It's called inverse square law, which I'm not going to get into because it's way above my pay grade in the math, but I can explain it to you. It's just that trying to explain it to you technically is crazy. Okay. All right. So anyway, so what you want, so that's with the light being 3 feet away. Here's what it looks like. It's, again, you can see it's very close. Camera, I don't know how far a camera is, probably 6 or 8 feet away from the subject. So it's right up on the subject, very, very close. So the next image, this is the exact same image, well, same person, same pose, except I've moved the light back 5 feet now. Okay, so 5 feet away, light still on 1/16 power, 1.5 meters away. But if you notice, all I did was move the light back. That's all I did, nothing else. Look at the difference in the lighting on her face and what starts to happen as you move the light back. You can look at the shadow on the nose as well. That's also a really good giveaway. Okay, look at the difference there and then there. So all I've done, not change the power, not put a softbox, nothing. All I've done is move the light back about 2 feet, 2 or 3 feet. Okay? So again, you can see the scenario, same thing, just the same lighting, just cameras in the same position, same power. All I've done is move the light back. Okay. Now on this image, we've made some changes. This one, I moved the light back to 8 feet instead of 5 feet, or 2.4 meters. Okay. But I had to up the power now from 1/16 power to quarter power. And again, that's the inverse square law, which I'm not going to go into tonight. Maybe in another session. But as you can see, all of a sudden, two things have happened here. The light on the right side of her face has gotten more coverage, and the shadows have gotten a little bit softer. but the background's gotten brighter. Now, why? That doesn't make sense, right? You'd think, well, wait a minute. If I want the background to be pure white, I would move the light closer, but you don't. You actually move the light back. And see if I can try and explain this to you without going into too much detail. So what happens with, if you take a flashlight, I should have one here somewhere. If you take a flashlight and just aim it at the wall, or not at the wall, but at an angle, what you're going to notice is the light is going to fall off, right? Right at the head of the light, it's going to be, very bright, and it's going to quickly fall off. Well, there's a mathematical formula for figuring out exactly how far or how much that light falls off. So what happens is after a certain point, the light is not going to really fall off that much. It's not going to fall off as drastically, for example. So closer to the light is going to drop off really quickly. So if I want a nice dark shadow, I want to move that light closer. But if I want the light to be softer and I want the background to be white, then I move it back further, because by the time the light hits the subject, the light has already fallen off quite a bit. And so by the time it hits the background, it's pretty much the same exposure the background is to the person's face. Again, I know it sounds complicated and it's hard to understand, but that's what it is, and that's how it works. And so I'm going to go into that more detail in just a little bit, not a lot, but just when you're photographing more than one person. Okay. All right. So here we are at 8 feet. So now again, same thing. Just move the light, the light on the right there's just move back to 8 feet. Power's turned up a little bit to compensate because the light has been moved. So therefore I needed to raise the power to keep the same exposure. Okay. Now, on this one, again, same photo, same light, no modifier, no softbox, nothing. It's just a bare bulb, what's kind of a bare bulb spot, flash. But it's now moved back to about 10 feet away. And I had to turn the power up, of course, because I moved the light further away. So to get the same exposure, I had to turn the light up on a 1-to-1 power. So just by moving the light back, I have made the shadow on her face much, much softer. Look at the right side of her face and look at the difference in the background, how much whiter it is. And that's because, again, because the light has already fallen off the same amount. It's not as much shadow there. And so therefore, the light that's hitting the background is about the same exposure as the light that hits her face. And again, you can see it's just the same thing, same position. The light's just further away. It's a 1-to-1 power, same lens, 70 millimeter, no ISO change, f8 now on this one, okay? So I've got one more I'm going to show you here, but let me just, okay, so let's go back real quick and just review, okay? So 3 feet away. Really drastic shadow because the light is falling off very, very quickly. It's the light between in a 3 foot range is going to be drop off almost half. Okay, move it back to 5 feet. The light doesn't fall off quite as much, so the light becomes softer around her face. Okay, move it back to 8 feet. It's even softer. Again, because the light now is wrapped, they say wrapping around. It's not technically wrapping around. Light doesn't wrap. It goes in a straight line. But the point is that the light is now broader, and it's also, the light is falling off less. So therefore, it's not as drastic a shadow. And then at 10 feet, you have a really nice look. So you could take this picture right here with the light about 10 feet away, and you could put like maybe a piece of foam core or a reflector on the right-hand side and have a pretty nice portrait. Now, let me show you one more. Now, this one is one where I've actually taken and I moved the light closer. It's 6 feet away, or 1.8 meters. And the power is still 1-to-1 because I'm now shooting through a diffuser. So I have a diffuser. Whoops, don't I not have the picture with the diffuser? I don't. Oh, shoot. Anyway, it's about a 3-foot diffuser, and I'm shooting through a diffuser, so therefore now I've got the benefit of both ideas. Number one, the light is still it's broader, it's bigger, and it's softer because it's bigger. So that's the thing. That's the thing I'm trying to get across to you here is keep in mind, people say, oh, a softbox makes the light softer, an umbrella, whatever. It's not technically the material that makes the light soft. When you look, as again, I showed you the two pictures of the specular highlights with the black round cue ball, and the white cue ball, and the difference was they're pretty much the same, except the specular highlight changed. What makes a light softer or harder, now remember this, it's worth writing down. What makes a light softer or harder is the relationship, the size of the light in relationship to the size of the object or subject. So if you have a light here and you have a subject here, okay, and it's really, really close, and the light is, you know, let's say you have a speed light, right? A speed light's pretty small, but you have a tiny little object, like a memory card. That light is actually going to be pretty soft, believe it or not, because it's covering this entire object, because the light in relationship to the size of the object is huge. Now, if I put the light up against my face, it's not huge. It's a small specular highlight, a small light, and therefore the shadows are going to be more drastic. So when you look at the sun, let's look outside, okay? Those of you that are quote-unquote natural light photographers, which I like to make fun of. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. It just means that you're afraid of lighting, and I understand that. But if you look into your midday sun, why don't you shoot in midday sun? Because you get really harsh shadows. Well, wait a minute. The sun is huge. There's nothing bigger than the sun, right? Why isn't that a nice soft light? It's because it's so far away that it becomes a very small light in relationship to the earth and the subject. But if you take a photograph on a day that's overcast with a bunch of clouds, all of a sudden that light is spread out, and therefore it's huge looking in relationship to the subject, right? It goes everywhere. Yes, it's diffused a little bit, but the main reason is it's larger light source in relationship to the subject. So if you want to create soft light, you make the light bigger. If you want to make more dramatic, harder light, you make the light smaller. So let me give you a real world example. Maybe I'm photographing a man, and I'm in a situation I don't have any lighting, or I have one light, one speed light, I don't have any equipment with me, whatever. My car's got broken into or locked or whatever the problem may be, and I only have a speed light in my camera. Okay, if I take that speed light and I bring it up right around 45 degrees, it depends. What you want is the more you bring it at an angle, the more dramatic the shadow and the texture of the face is going to be. The more around center, it's going to be flatter or more straight on. It's going to hide the texture. So on a woman, it's typically the way I would do it. But still, it's a small light, right? So what am I going to do? I can turn it around if there's a wall behind me, and I can bounce it off the wall. Or I can take a piece of foam core or a sheet or a piece of paper, whatever I have, and put that and bounce that light off of that surface, and now the light appears to be larger. That's why when you bounce it off the ceiling, you know, people use in event photography that have low ceilings or things like that. The reason is because it works is because now it's bouncing off that ceiling, and so the light becomes huge. The light effectively compared to the subject is much, much larger. And that's what makes the light soft. It's not the surface of the ceiling. It's not that. It's the fact that now by bouncing it, it becomes a larger light source. So if you need to get a softer light, I always carry, and I don't know why, I should have one of these right here. I don't know why I don't. I always talk about them. A 5-in-1 reflector is something you want to invest in. I like about a 42-inch 5-in-1 reflector. And what this is it's about this big, and it pops open. and it's about, again, 40, 42 inches in size. And the reason I like that size is because I can use it for multiple things. I could do it for a couple of people if I were photographing more than one person. But it also makes the light softer. So there are many times where I've needed to have a softbox, but I didn't have a softbox, or I didn't have room or whatever. I'll pop open this 42-inch reflector, take my speed light, put it on the other side of it, and shine it through, maybe zoom it out so it's not at 200 millimeter, maybe it's at 24 millimeter. And all of a sudden, I now have a light that is effectively 42 inches in diameter. That's going to, and put it as close as I can, just out of frame. In fact, if you look at this picture here, you can see that this over here on the right-hand side, that black bar is actually because that's the reflector there. It was in the shot, and I wanted it as close as possible to make the picture as soft as possible. Okay? So, just to recap, again, if you want to make the light softer, make it larger. If you want to make it harder, make it smaller. And that will give you much, much more control over your lighting situation. Again, if you want to create more texture for photographing something that has texture, a bag, or a purse or something, or a piece of carpet, or something that has a lot of texture to it, then you want to light that at an angle. You don't want that light straight on. If you're trying to photograph a person, let's say, again, an elderly person or a woman or someone you want to make more complimentary, might make them look a little better, then move that light a little further ahead, a little more straight on, okay, and then that will hide that texture. Okay, it will look just the opposite. And then again, if you can shoot it through something, bounce it off something to effectively make it larger, that's going to work even better. Okay. All right, so let's move on here. Any questions, comments, or snide remarks? Trying to look at the questions here real quick, see if I see that I missed. Okay. All right. So, let's look at this couple right here. Couple of people, okay. I think this is using what did I just set this? This is again, a speed light. It's, I think it's about 4 or 5 feet away, okay. And the interesting thing about this is if you look at where they're placed, the man is about 2 or 3 feet behind the woman, okay. Very common situation. Again, you're photographing maybe a couple or a group. Groups are tough, all right? And what's happening here, what I'm trying to show you, is that if you look, the gentleman is in the dark. His exposure on his face is much, much less than that of the woman. And the reason is exactly the same thing I talked about before. That goofy technical term, inverse square law. What that means is the light, by the time it reaches him, has dropped off so much that he's going to be underexposed. So what do? Guess what? We move the light. All we're going to do is move the light. That's it. Okay. And all I've done is move the light now back. I think this is about 10 feet away, maybe. So I didn't do as many increments as I did on the other one. So there it goes from there to about 3 or 4 feet to there to about 10 feet. And that's all I did was move the light. And that's it. Now I may have to have adjusted let's see, I have to have power on the lighting here. Yeah, so that's half power. And whoops. This one was, this is a 64th power because I was closer. So when I moved it to here, I had to go to half power to compensate and still keep the same exposure. Then this one here is using a softbox. Now this is a 39-inch softbox, but I wanted to show you the difference between what it looks like with a softbox versus a speed light. And if you can tell, there's not a lot of difference. There's some difference. The shadows are a little softer, but if you look, with the speed light, it's pretty much the same. That's a usable picture. Now the shadows, you want to move them a little bit away from the wall, of course, if you don't want the shadows in there on the background. But the point is that the exposure on their faces is about the same. It's not too bad. It's usable. Okay, it's not soft, but it's certainly not as dramatic as it was before. It's, like I said, it's usable. But here, this is with the softbox, and the softbox, of course, is make it a little bit softer. But looks like she's out of focus in this one for some reason, huh? Anyway, but as you can see, just by moving the light, I'm still able to do that, to be able to get a usable picture without actually having any extra equipment or having some giant softbox or something like that. So, again, just trying to make you guys understand, it's about the size of the light in reference to the subject, not so much the material or the softbox. Because you can make a light huge. You can take a sheet. You could take, again, piece of foam core you carry with you, bounce it off that foam core, and you'll have a nice soft light. Now, you may need some more power if you're using a speed light. You got to crank it up a little bit because you're going to lose some power bouncing it off of an object, or even shooting it through a softbox or a grid, or not a grid, a diffuser panel. You're going to lose some light, about a stop or so usually what happens, depending on the material. But you can achieve the same thing without having to have a big fancy softbox if necessary. Okay, so again, let me kind of remind you guys, I think George Eastman said it best, light makes photography. Embrace it, admire it, love it, but above all, know it. Know it for all you're worth, and you will know the key to photography. And I just can't really emphasize that enough. It really is really true. It's very true. So let me kind of give you some real world experiences that I've run into with lighting situations. See if I can think of one. Well, usually I show you guys some stuff. See if I can pull up an image or two real quick. I wouldn't plan on doing this, but it might be helpful. And I'll show you some pictures that, some images that, that maybe will kind of help you understand that it's not about having a bunch of equipment. Let's see. Sorry here. I'm fumbling. I apologize about this. It's kind of ad hoc. Let's see here. So let's go. So I know you guys have seen some of these pictures I've shown you before. I don't usually show them off, but this is for edumacation purposes only, not to show off my own images, because I think you guys do just as great a job as I do. Okay, so here's one here. Let me show you this one. So this is one. Whoops. Oh, here we go. All right, so this is one that I know you guys have seen that I've shown multiple times. Here, I'll just bring a bunch of these in. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Okay. All right. So here's one that I've done. This is one that I like to use lighting outdoor. I know I've told you this before. I light everything. This is one where I shot. This is at the World War II Memorial. I was actually, this is kind of an interesting story, not that it matters, but I was on assignment doing another shoot way across town somewhere else, and I got a phone call and said, hey, can you be down in the district at 4 o'clock to photograph this general at the World War II Memorial, and we need the images by 6. So that's always a challenge. I'm like, yeah, I can probably pull that off. So I get down there ahead of time, and I set this up, and I look around, and I see it's a really nice, beautiful day, nice blue day, kind of almost winter, a little past winter. And I'm looking around trying to figure, and I see this really, and I said, well, what I'll do is I'll put him against here to show the World War II Memorial, and then I will underexpose the picture, the image, to show the background and the sky. but then I pulled out another light, a studio light, battery-powered studio light, and turned that on and got the exposure right on his face. So here's what happened. So he comes in, he shows up by cab, he says, "Hey, I'm here for this photo shoot." He goes, "By the way, I have really sensitive eyesight and the sun really bothers me." So this really worked out perfectly because I was already planning on putting his back to the sun. Now, I could have had him face into the sun and lit it that way, and that would have still worked. But I really wanted that background of the World War II memorial. So by underexposing the background, if you look, he would have normally been, look at the front of his coat, and okay, even though it's a dark coat, it would have been totally underexposed. He'd have been silhouetted practically, okay? But by exposing for the background and then filling it in with flash, I was able to bring his exposure up to match the background, and so it looked more like it was natural, somewhat natural, and he was fine. This is an interesting scenario I talk about where I probably shot maybe, I don't know, 11, 12, 14 frames out of this whole shoot maybe. And once I got the shot that I know I had, I was like, okay, I'm done. He's like, "What do you mean we're done?" I said, "Yeah." And the reason was because I knew once I had this shot, that's all I needed. I didn't have to overshoot. I had planned on a bunch of other things that I was going to do with him, but I didn't end up doing them because I know I didn't need to. So anyway, just a couple of images and that was it. Okay, let me show you another one here. So here's another one. This is one. This is done in a studio. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was on location. They were. Okay, so what lens did I use on that one? Curious about the focal length. That's a good question. I'd have to pull that up, Tank. I would say. I would say that I probably have to pull. I would say probably the 24 to 70 is my guess is what I used on that. Because you know, that's usually my kind of my go-to lens on those kinds of things, on something like that. And but I'm not positive. I have to look. I can check. But it looks like probably a 24 to 70, maybe zoomed out about 24 would be my guess. Again, the interesting thing is, if you look, go back. What do you notice about this image other than the lighting? Okay. Look at the angle of the eye line. Okay, so instead of shooting straight on, I'm kind of kneeled down a little bit. Two reasons for doing that. Number one, this gentleman was a retired general. The article was about him being a general and about what he was doing then. So I wanted him to be authoritative and strong looking, but I also wanted the World War II memorial in there. So by kneeling down a little bit, I was able to do both the perspective, get the perspective of him, make him stronger, more looking, and then also get the sky and the memorial in there. What was fun about this picture, which is always kind of nice, is it wasn't originally meant, it was just an insert in, to go with an article, supporting photo, but they liked it so much they turned it into a cover. And that's always nice because, number one, they pay you more money, but number two, it's always a bonus to know that your photos were used as a cover because, just kind of a cool thing. Anyway. So, okay, so here's another one. This is one I show a lot of people, and the reason is not because it's a great photo, but it's lit, and it doesn't look lit. There's just enough lighting on it, just enough to fill in the shadows. They were kind of in the shade a little bit, but they're still... and the other thing about this photo, this is kind of not about lighting, okay, but it's about working, a little advice on how to work with a subject. I'm dealing with these women. They were fundraising for a children's charity. And they're not used to be in front of the camera, right? We're dealing with people that don't know or not familiar with how to pose, how to be comfortable. They're worried about how they're going to look. But by giving them a prop, which I often do carry with me just in case, I said, here, let's see if you guys can try and do this thing. Well, nobody can do these paddle balls. But the thing is, they totally forgot about me and what I was doing, and they got into trying to do this thing. And so therefore, it took their mind off of the photo and made a much more natural photo, and the magazine loved it. This is one of those things where I talk about to you guys, I try and explain to you, go above and beyond. Shoot what the client wants, and then try some of your own ideas, and you may find that those ideas are actually better than what the client was asking for. And this is one of those situations. Okay. But here's the one that I think, here is the one that a lot of people ask me about. Okay. So this one here is also lit, but it doesn't look lit. Okay, there's an assistant walking to camera right with a light, with a big, I think a soft box or something, I forgot. Might have been a beauty dish, I forgot. But they're lit. And so what I did is I mixed the lighting by 50-50, meaning 50% natural light or available light and about 50% of the strobe. Just turned it up just enough to fill in the shadows on their faces. But by doing that, it didn't look lit. It looks very, very natural. So by using flash doesn't have to look odd. It doesn't have to look blue. It doesn't have to look unnatural, because it's really what we're trying to do is simulate natural light anyway. So this is an example where you can use lighting without it making it look lit. So anyway, and then of course, I don't know what, this is just one. This is one where this is a roller derby woman. These people are just so nice. They were so great. And I don't know if you guys, can you read her helmet? What her name of her, they come up with names for each other, or on their own names. And then her name, if you can't read it, it says Menopause Attacks. But so a lot of times they don't even know their own name. They don't, the people they work with or they play with, or their fellow sport, don't even often know their real names. They just go by their names they use for roller derby. Anyway, this was again, I set up a temporary studio right there at the rink where they were performing or running, and I had two lights, one on each side to give the rim light, and then the one in the center was actually a ring light above the camera, not actually using it as a ring light, just as a little bit of fill. And but if you want to look at, so if you study this image and look at the shadows, let's look again at kind of going back where we were talking about before. Number one, you got a little bit of shadow on each side of her face. And then you've got the highlights, but look in her eyes. You'll see a little specular highlight there, just a little tiny light that really adds a little bit to that image. And so by using that light, again, for this kind of sports photo, this is a typical kind of lighting scenario that I like to use, for edge lighting and then a fill light, just a little bit of fill light, not to fill in the entire amount. Anyway, okay, enough of that. I don't know why why I wanted to show you that, but I thought it might be helpful to help you understand. Okay. Any questions, comments, or other remarks, questions you guys have about lighting? Nope. Yep. Okay. So, Tank says, she'd like to try and shoot something in this style for my rugby team. This would be a really good one to do, Tank. And again, so it's nice if you have 3 lights. If you don't, that would be ideal. But because you can do it with 2 lights if you want, but you want kind of that edge lighting about. If you can do is kind of move them about right here, about 45 degrees or a little less, but you want them not quite left and right, but you want them just a little bit, not, in other words, not 90 degrees, just a little bit here. And that'll give you that'll let you fill in some of the face, the front of the face, but also give you the lighting on the edge. And that will help. And then if you have a light in the front, if you don't, try and use a bounce reflector, foam core, something like that. That might help give you just a little bit of light there as well. But that'd be great for a rugby team. And again, I'd try and do individuals on that as well. If you got, they're probably going to want a team photo, which is fine, but it's the individual photos where you can really have some fun and create that more edgy look there. Now, I should also mention this this photo also, where is it here? Is also had some dodging and burning done in post-processing to make it more dramatic. But still, it's the same thing, same kind of lighting on that. Okay. Let's see. This one, Allie says, I'm going to go look for some figurines at lunch today so I can play with lighting. Oh, good. Hey, listen, send me some photos or post them in the group so I can look at them and kind of give you some critiques and some feedback on what you need to do. But, there can be anything. An apple. I tell you, a common thing that's used by a lot of people in classes and things is an egg. And an egg, because an egg is round and it's, soft, you can really try and try and get a hard lighting on it and then try and get a soft lighting on it. So it's a really good object to try and get correct on, or to practice on, because it's such an interesting shape. And it can be kind of difficult sometimes to get a really good look on it. So anyway, let's see. What else you guys got? Anything else before I let you go tonight? I think that's about it. Hopefully this has been helpful. And that you guys, here's something I want to ask you guys. I've been wanting to ask you a question about this. I'm going to be doing an entire series on this. It may not be on the show because it's really too complicated, and not too complicated, it's just too involved. And so I'm wondering about maybe, I'm going to be doing a lighting course. There's no doubt about it. This is actually kind of the first part of it. So I'm going to send you guys an email, and I'll probably post something in the group about this. But if you're interested in this and you would like me to include you in a series of lighting course that I'm working on, then I would ask that you go to the website. Okay, let me put this up real quick, Sue-Ann, here. So go to photomentoracademy.com and just enter your email address into the form there and your name. And when the course is going to come out, I'm looking at maybe mid-May that I'm going to be launching this thing. It could be as soon as April, but I'm not sure. It's going to really depend on you guys. If this is something you're interested in, then be sure and if you're already registered, if you're in the group or something, don't worry about it, because I'll post it in the Facebook group. But if you're new and you're not on the mailing list, you're not getting emails from me, then go in there and go to photomentoracademy.com, put your email address in there so we can let you know, because I'd love to hear what you guys think, what you're looking for on this kind of thing, and make sure that I'm on track for you. Okay, so Tanking says, my main question for tonight was about speed light for an event photography. I'm struggling to get a good, and I bet it's struggling to get a good looking light, right, Tank? In other words, it's probably overblown or it's just too overexposed. So let me kind of try and address that the best I can. I don't have a lot of information based on what you're giving me, but let me see if I can help address that. So on-camera light, or speed light, is a little more difficult because you don't have much control over it. So the first thing you want to do, you can put it on your camera and get it up above the lens. Now, when you do that, that's what, you know, we've all seen pictures of snapshots with people and their eyes are all red looking, okay, called red eye, right? There's even a filter called red eye reduction. Well, the reason that what causes that is the light hits the back of the iris, I believe it's the iris, and it bounces right back. And that's what causes that. And so in an animal, cat or dog, it's even worse because they're so large. Well, by raising the light up, or you'll see some people put them on a bracket off to the side. The reason they do that is so if it's not in line with the lens, then therefore you don't get that red eye. And so it looks a little more natural. That's the first thing. So you want to get the light up or to the side of the lens and the sensor to prevent that. The second thing is you can go straight on with the light if you want, but what you want to do is, so what you want to do is you just want to make it a little softer. So, all right, let me try and explain this to you guys. If you go back and watch the lighting course, you have access to it. It's in Photo Mentor Academy, and I'll send you a link to it directly. But if you remember, shutter speed does not control the power of the flash, only the ambient light. So what happens is if you use a slower shutter speed, it will tell the camera, and raise the ISO up a little bit, it will tell the camera I don't need much light. And therefore the power of the flash will be automatically powered down if you're using TTL. If you're using manual, you can just manually down that speed light. But what you want to do is here's the way I do it. I turn the flash off, and let's say I'm shooting on aperture priority, and I take a picture of the scene and the event, and I look at what the camera says it thinks it's going to need. Okay, so let's say I need f4.5 or f8 or 6, whatever, at ISO 200, 400. Then you can either take those same numbers, put them in manual, put the camera in manual, and dial those same numbers in. Now, the problem with that is as you move around the scene and in different lighting situations, the camera's going to change. So that's why I don't like shooting on manual in this particular scenario. So I would stay with aperture priority. But look at what the numbers are and what the camera thinks the exposure is. Then turn the flash on, and what you can do is you can just go to manual, or you can dial it down and just dial the flash down so it's not as bright. You're just looking for a little bit of fill on that flash. You don't want it to be blasting. And the reason it's blasting is because the settings on the camera are telling it, I need a lot of light. So if you're shooting at f16, for example, at ISO 100, then the flash is going to go, oh man, I need a ton of light. And it's going to go full power on the flash to expose everything. But if you use a wider, a bigger opening, 4.5 maybe, and you use a higher ISO, it's going to, on TTL at least, a flash is going to say, I don't need much flash. It's just going to, it's going to automatically power the flash down, so you're only using less power. You can also use a slower shutter speed to bring up some of the ambient light, so you're not looking at just like, because if you use a high shutter speed, people say, oh, I got to use 250 to freeze the image. You do not need a fast shutter speed to freeze action when using flash. And the reason is the flash is what freezes the action, not the shutter speed. All right? Here's a test for you. Put your camera, set it up on a tripod, move your hand in front of with a flash on. Fire the camera, move your hand. Change the shutter speed. And you want to do this in a dimly lit room as most as possible to get the most effect. Do it again. Go from 2/50th of a second to 1/25th of a second. Move your hand. Do it again, 60th of a second. Move your hand. What you're going to find is that the flash, the duration of the flash is what's going to freeze the action, not the shutter speed. The shutter speed is only going to affect the ambient light, the light in the room. So if you want more light in a room, use a slower shutter speed. If you want less, raise the shutter speed. So that's why your pictures look probably kind of washed out and blasted, because if you're using too high of a shutter speed, the camera is not you picking up any ambient light, it's only the flash. So it looks like like a snapshot, because the flash is just going off and it's blasting everything out. But if you lower your shutter speed to about 60th of a second, try that and raise your ISO maybe a little bit. What you're going to find is you're going to get a much more natural mix. Just try it in your own living room or somewhere with a lamp. Take a lamp, next to the lamp, take a picture. You change the shutter speed only and watch what happens. And I think you'll see what's going on there. Okay, hopefully that helps. All right. Any other questions? Okay, good, Brian. I'm glad that helps. Yeah, it's confusing. It really is confusing. I totally get that it's confusing, because it was confusing to me too. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. And you got to remember, also, I came from a world of film. So on film, the way you did sync speed of a flash is there's a little X on the 60th of a second, and that was the only shutter speed you could shoot at. That was it. And so when they started telling me, whoa, you have to change the shutter speed to pick up ambient light or less, I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But the more I tried it, the more I experimented, the more I learned how it works. So it's really a phenomenal thing. And because I do a lot of magazine work, I'm always shooting on location. So if I'm on a location and I got to figure out, do I want the background or do I want to get rid of the background? If I'm here's two scenarios. One, I'm in a conference room. You can't turn off the lights. There's a lot of light coming in the room, but I'm doing portraits and I don't want that light. I want to kill the light. I want it to be basically just my flash. Well, I'll shoot as on the fastest shutter speed as I can, 2/50th or higher. And what happens is, just by doing that, the room goes black. Even though there are overhead fluorescent lights and whatever, the room becomes totally black, because the faster the shutter speed, the more I'm killing the ambient light. So there's a scenario where I can turn any room black if I want by raising a shutter speed. Now, the opposite is true if I'm in a situation where I'm photographing somebody in their den or in their home, and I need to include that background. I want that ambient light. They're sitting in a piano or in a bookcase, near a bookcase behind them, and I want that. Then I want to use a slower shutter speed, because that's going to bring up that ambient light. So once I got an exposure set at the right shutter speed and aperture to pick up the background, this is roaming or an event either in a dark room. Yeah, it's going to be tough. So you're going to have to, again, try and use a slow shutter speed as much as possible, 60th of a second. You'll pick up some ambient light if there's any lamp lights around. The problem is if you do too slow of a shutter speed. Now, what you can do is raise the ISO. So leave it at 1/25th or 60th of a second and raise the ISO to, 2000, whatever, 64, whatever you need to do. That's going to pick up more of the ambient light, and also tell the flash on TTL, I don't need much light because I'm using this high ISO. That's going to bring the power of the flash down, and you'll get more of a mix. So try that. But everybody's so afraid to turn the ISO up. They got to shoot at ISO 100 because they think they got to get all these saturated colors. Doesn't matter. And especially with flash, just turn the ISO up if you're going to need it and see what that does for you. But I think you'll find that'll bring up more of the ambient light and also turn the flash down automatically if it's a TTL flash. Okay. So hopefully that helps. Any other questions before I let you guys go tonight? Hope this has been helpful. It's so hard to decide what to cover for you guys without going. I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but at the same time, I want to make sure you guys get what you're going to need to be able to use this in a practical scenario. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more I can go into, and that's why I'm looking at launching a course around May for you guys, and I need to know what you guys want me to cover in that course. So anyway, I'll reach out to you individually. Okay. So, what do you think, Sue Ann? That it? Anything? Talk to me. Anything else going on? I can hear you now if you talk to me, Sue Ann. I think I can. All right. Anyway. Okay. Listen, everybody, thanks very much. Appreciate it. And I hope that you guys got a lot out of this, and we'll see you again next week, Tuesday, on 8 p.m. Eastern Time, as always.
I think I can.
There you are. Hey, what do you think? How'd it go?
And I hope that you guys got a lot out of this, and we'll see you again next week, Tuesday, on 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hey.
Yeah, what do you think? How'd that work? Okay, think I got the right information?
I can't tell. I think everybody learned something for sure on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot to cover. It's a difficult subject, but it seems like one that people have a lot of difficult with, and that's why I wanted to cover it. I think we need to go do more of these as well.
And people are noticing the new intro and the new outro music.
Yeah, I see that Tank mentioned that too. So yeah, I like that. I like that music. It's really, I think it's cool. So cool. I'm going to play it again.
She's saying we can hear both of you. Uh-oh.
Yeah, you're supposed to.
He's letting me on. Hold up. I love it. There's so much to it that people don't even realize, because I think until you think about lighting, you don't realize.
Well, unfortunately, it scares a lot of people, and it shouldn't be. It's just a matter, there's a couple of key components, but once you figure that out, it really becomes easy.
It's fun. It's all fun. Good turnout tonight, by the way.
Oh, good. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Again, it's a good topic, and I think it's one of the top three things. I know it is one of the top three things that people have questions on, so that's why I wanted to cover it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Sue Ann. Appreciate all your help.